Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll give people just a minute to join. And I'll actually ask Erin or Medea, whoever was pulling up the presentation, you could go ahead and pull that up. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. So good evening, advisory team. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's hard to believe. I think this is our third meeting already in 1 month, and we really appreciate your dedication to this project. Just a couple of housekeeping things. There is no Q&A feature in this chat because the advisory team members are all panelists. We ask if you do have a comment, just raise your hand. This again, primarily, we do have a similar presentation to the community presentation for you all, but feel free to raise your hand, jump in. We'll stop throughout, make sure we can have the discussion because this will be our last meeting before the school board selects a concept. The meeting is being recorded. It will be, and it is live, so the community is able to participate by watching. They can't submit questions, but they can certainly watch our discussion tonight. So we will jump right in. We can go to the next slide. So tonight we do have revised concepts for those of you who weren't able to participate in the community meeting beforehand. We have gone from the hand, the crescent, and the pinwheel to just the hand and the pinwheel. And I think something interesting that we found previously, and even among our own team and staff, was a misconception that, one concept meant it had to be one specific parking layout. And we heard a couple different comments on preferred parking layouts. So tonight, our team will walk you through the two concepts, both the building mass and then the two parking options. Because the building's in the same place in both schemes, we have some flexibility about how the bus loop and parking is coordinated on the site. So I will let Omar Calderon from Perkins Eastman take it from here and go through the concepts with you. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Erica, for that intro. And I think that you really did a great job summarizing where we are today. We've created some new graphics to illustrate the various concepts. And you see here the summary, which is the hand concept as a kind of building organization, building massing element there on the top. And then how it fits on the site, how it sits on the site with all of the other things that need to happen on the site to facilitate the operation of the school, but also the recreation and athletic facilities and how well they fit with that particular building idea. And then on the bottom, the pinwheel concept, which is a different building form, a different organization, and it's not it's really equal to the first one in how it organizes all of the spaces, all of the learning spaces that the school needs to function, the classrooms, the laboratories, some of the dining facilities, all the rest has the equal quality, but really how it fits on the site, that it's a little bit different, and of course the site idea that is associated with that plan. Can go to the next slide. And so by process of elimination for many reasons, which I'll maybe just illustrate one, we eliminated the second concept, is how much of the site the building was taking over, right? And so the more site that the building utilizes, that means we have less site available to do other things that we may want to do with the site, like vehicular circulation, like pedestrian circulation, like athletic and recreation facilities. So we have two site options to share with you. We call this one option A, and it uses the hand concept scheme. So you see there the building sits on the east part of the site, and it has these two wings of classrooms. All the classrooms are facing north and south to maximize the daylight harvesting opportunities, which it's our belief that that has a bottom line imprint on the cost of operating the school, because the more you use daylight, the less you have to rely on artificial lighting. And so in terms of our net zero aspirations and how well the building performs from an energy conservation point of view, orientation of those classrooms is a big thing. It's an important thing. So this does it, and you'll see that the other idea for the building does it as well. But in this case, we have these two classroom wings, we have a courtyard, and then we have the bus loop on the west of the school building, and then the rest of the athletic facilities to the west of that. Now this sets up a very clear distinction between where the buses go and where the cars go. And so the two remain separated. We should point out that where we're saying buses and cars shared, that parking lot there, that is for the use of the buses, obviously, in the morning when we're bringing students to the school and dropping them off in a safe manner to the right so that they can then walk to the front door of the school there. But also when the buses are not there during the middle of the day, that area there can be used for cars. And so we try to maximize the use of that surface. On the east side, we have a parking area, which is accessible through its own curb cut. And then where it says school expansion, that actually has a dedicated lane that can be used to pick up and drop off students. Okay.
Omar?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please? In the last meeting, two students who are members of this panel asked if the athletic fields could be placed closer to the building and the parking be placed further away. At the time, you said that that was an extremely important consideration. I'm wondering, since you didn't adopt it, what your reasons were for not accepting it.
Right. So if you allow me to go through the presentation,
okay,
you'll see
all
that
right.
we have a
Okay.
second option.
Okay. Sure. No, I know the second one is within the front, front.
Right, within the front. And so what you're seeing here is now the possibility to bring the buses along Braddock Road, what we call sort of facing Braddock area. But that allows us to connect the school building to the fields. Now within that idea, there's many ways in which we can place the fields on the site. And so if the basketball court and the proximity of the basketball court is something that gains a lot of importance, and we did hear that at the last session we had together, so we are aware of it. We have not discarded that as an idea, but you can see that in between the field and the school building, there's space now that can be used for placing the basketball court. If that's what we decide as a group, it's important, or for some other additional recreation use that we may think of, right? And so the point we're trying to make is that between the first option and the second option, there's different things you can do with the site.
Can I ask one more question regarding
Sure.
the field?
Yeah.
And that is, currently the field is oriented north-south. In all of the options you presented, you orient the field east-west.
Right.
Since the field fits north-south, and I'm not sure, but it seems to me that the school system built its tennis courts facing east-west, only to learn from the athletic association that it would disadvantage players playing into the sunset,
Mm-hmm.
that they were forced to rebuild the tennis courts. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering whether the Athletic Association of the United States, those people that make these kind of determinations, have a position on the orientation of football fields relative to rising and setting suns.
Right.
It seems that the north-south orientation of the field would take up less geographic space, and it could be, as an architect, you abhor a space and that you want to fill it. That's a natural inclination. But I'm wondering why in option A, in all of your options, you've got the field oriented east-west.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point and a good question. I appreciate it. It's a question for us of fit. The size is oriented north-south existing. It's also in a different part of the site that has a little more depth. So you can see that we have that triangular space there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's correct, Omar, but yeah, I understand. It is tighter.
Yeah. And so we're trying to also build a little bit of a multi-use dimension. So this field here at behind the goal, there's a little more area than what is present there. So there's a little bit more dimension to this field than what is existing.
If this field was north-south, you would have even more space. You're giving up space. You're giving up space by orienting this field east-west.
Right, but if we were to orient it east-west, then that would really obviate this option, right? It would make this option
north-south. North-south, you mean?
Right, right, yes. And that's what I'm trying to point out. And what we're trying to do is actually...
I understand what you're trying to point out. I'm offering advice. And I certainly understand that there are many complex uses and reasons for the orientation of all of the pieces that you have to fit onto this property. I'm trying to figure out whether they all make as much sense as is needed for a community that's going to live with the results of your work for the next 30 to 40 years.
Okay. Okay, and I appreciate the comments, and perhaps if you allow me to illustrate some of the other options we have,
sure,
then maybe we can come back to them and have more discussion.
Certainly.
But I'll say this, that the tennis courts in here are oriented in the north-south direction, which I believe is what you have now presently in its present form. So we have oriented them in recognition of that. So moving on to the next thing that we want to share, and I'll just very quickly, this is a lot of information in one slide, I realize that, but just bear with me, just to illustrate the diagram of the building and how the main organizational features of the hand concept. Everything that's blue is the academic spaces, classrooms and laboratories, and the teal color is sort of the art studios and CTE spaces. And you can see the pool there on the left on level 1. The pool has a big volume of space. And so I like to think of it in my head as the pool coming out of the ground. And that's important because we're trying to bring daylight into the pool in a way that you know, it's good, a good quality daylight. And so we'd like the volume of the pool to be able to come out of the ground, if you will. Then above the pool, we have the other gymnasium spaces. And this is critical, I think, for the fit in the site. And, you know, one could say, well, you know, you could do it side by side, but that takes a lot of space, right? And we're trying to maximize how much we can do with the site by creatively stacking programs, right? And so the choice of putting the gym over the pool is deliberate because dimensionally, those spaces are very similar. And so we're putting like uses with like uses. All of the athletic and recreation spaces exist within one block of space. And then east of that is all of the academics. So you could zone the building public, let's say, on the left-hand side, and then let's call it private on the right-hand side. And then also it's important to remember that because of the topography change, and there's a lot of topography in the site, it's possible to enter this building in the center of the school from 2 different elevations. And I think that will contribute to the quality of the space by creating this 2-story vertically connected space that can be entered from two ends, from 2 sides. Next. So then let us walk you through the second option, the pinwheel concept. And by pinwheel, I mean the building concept, the pinwheel concept, where we have the classrooms not oriented as wings that are facing in the same direction, but really more as pavilions that are rotating or gravitating around all of the shared components of the school. You notice also that the gym and the pool get reoriented in the site so that they're more sort of long axis east-west, and that allows the building to find a better fit, if you will, within the property. On the east side, we have parking spaces and 2 curb cuts. And the 2 curb cuts allow us to have almost like a one-way counterclockwise loop that is associated with the entry there to the south. So you'll be able to pick up and drop off from a car to the right into a plaza space that then leads to the front door of the school, which incidentally would be facing Braddock Road, right? So this idea of civic presence and where you see the entrance playing out, it's important in this concept. We also have a secondary entrance to the west, which is there in the courtyard space. And that actually gives access to the students to connect back to the fields. Like we showed in the first option, we have the bus car loop there on the west. And that's really shown there because it's utilizing the same curb cut, and as a matter of convenience, you're picking up and dropping off to the right. And it's the same principle of utilizing that space during the day when the buses are not there. Cars can park there. Also in the weekends, when people are coming in to use the fields, that space would also be available to have convenient access to parking there. And then the west of the site is similar to what we saw before. There's athletic fields and tennis and a basketball futsal area.
I'm sorry, I will, Oscar had a question about showing where the pedestrian access is. Oscar, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, it's well, from the first one as well, but here I see side access by car and by bus, but how do the kids go between the athletic fields, for example, and how do they get in and out of the sidewalk here into the where's?
Right.
I don't see any a corresponding arrow for pedestrian flows. Right.
Okay. So we have marked the entrances to the building, and so along Braddock Road, there's the network of sidewalks that exist there today. We would like to enhance that piece of sidewalk that's all the way to the east. All the way to the east there as being very important. And so we would like to widen that and create not only a wide, safe pedestrian zone for students to walk, but also create a little bit of a screening or shielding against the parking area that would be directly north of it. We have talked with our traffic engineers about traffic calming measures that would make the every time you cross a driveway to make it in a safe manner. So we've talked about these tabletop elements that elevate the surface of the road to the level of the sidewalk, so that the sidewalk is continuous, but it actually forces the car to slow down. So we've talked about using that element on a couple of different places here. There where the black arrows are, the bi-directional arrows, where we're entering the site, and also on the west side where the buses are, creating a raised tabletop that connects the fields to the courtyard to the east. So more right. Yeah, keep it right there. Yes, right there. Sorry, I'm not the one pointing at the screen, so there's a little bit of delay there. So that's part of the thinking, to create traffic calming measures. In this particular concept, that needs to be a bit of a necessity, right? To be able to create a pedestrian zone through the bus loop. Now, if we flip to the option B, in the option B, we don't need that, right? Because all of the vehicular flow between the fields and the school are to the south of the fields. And so the paved area that you see there connects the fields to the school building. And there might be an opportunity for added landscaping treatment, some of which could be part of the stormwater management system. So rather than being something in the corner, it's something that can be integrated into the design. And so at this point, it's really more of a diagram, the idea of creating those lighter green zones that you see there, integrated into the pedestrian network.
Omar?
Yes.
Currently westbound, there's a third lane that's used for drop-off. Is that going to remain, or will that be incorporated into the campus so that traffic will have 2 westbound and 2 eastbound lanes?
I don't know if we'll be able to integrate that into the campus, but I think what you're describing is the deceleration lane that happens along Braddock that allows one to make a right turn into the existing parking lot. So Medea, if you can point to, yeah, that there's a whole length of deceleration that happens there. We have talked about making that available as possible, on-site sort of drop-off or parking, perhaps parallel parking, but it's too early for me to, I haven't really talked to enough people about how to best utilize that part of the site.
Is that the city or is that the school property?
Well, the property line as it exists in the survey drawings that I have seen sort of cuts through the middle of that, the long way. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that multiple groups will have jurisdiction over that. Yeah. Okay, so let's, in the interest of getting to the questions and the feedback and all the rest. So this is the plans for that pinwheel concept. And I should reiterate that nothing has been compromised in terms of access to daylight and the quality of the spaces in this concept versus the other one. It's just simply a different way of organizing the building, one in which uses the academic spaces, as you see here, in two different directions, right? Spinning off of this heart of the school center. One big distinction that I should point out is the fact that in this concept, we can see that it's a little more compact in its footprint than the other one. And that's coming as a result of that 5th floor that you see there at the bottom. So whereas we have 4 levels in the other concept, this one requires a 5th floor to house all of the things that the school needs to operate. Can go to the next slide. So this is, I think, we have a poll coming, or perhaps no polls. We have, remind me again, Medea, how do we get the feedback? Do we have the poll?
We can start the poll now, or you guys can.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot our conversation. So we now is the time where we can have discussion, and there's going to be an opportunity for you to answer just 2 questions, 2 questions on each of the concepts that we've presented here.
Omar, I'm sorry.
To help us.
I'm sorry. I do have a question.
Yeah. This is the time to do that.
Okay. I thought the moderator said that you were open to questions during the presentation. I apologize if that was not the case. I really do want to figure out exactly what's being proposed here. I'm glad you're here to answer questions. I do have a question. Since the pool is problematic, since the budget is already hitting the top without the pool, if the pinwheel is adopted, could the 5th floor be placed where the pool would have been and make the pinwheel 4 stories?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I hate to be the guy that says no, because I'm never that guy in the office. But on this one, I have to say, not really sure how that would work. And here's why I say that. The pool space and the gymnasium space, those are tall spaces. So let's call them their double height, right? So where you would have, let me see how I explain this, where you would have 4 levels, in that part of the building, you have 2 levels, right? Because each level is 2 levels tall. So if we take, I'm thinking this through now, if we take the pool out, the gymnasium would drop down 2 levels, and you could say maybe add a story on top of the gymnasium. Okay, yeah, that could potentially work. I mean, I retract my initial no statement, sir. Thank you.
You're going to face this very question at the school board meeting, which is going to have to figure out how to pay extra money for that pool. So, and I believe I read somewhere that the existence of the pool increases the energy use, which makes it more difficult to make this building energy neutral.
Yeah, that's true.
So those are the questions you're going to be faced, and if you have a good answer, if you've thought through it, then
Yeah.
the meeting will go well.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, sir. And I appreciate the question and the you know, the nudging, right, to get the answers. But I think on the question of the budget and the pool and all of that, I have to really defer to Azuka and Erica, who have a broader understanding of all of the other pieces that we don't see as designers that might impact the budget.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. The pool as a concept, you know, we are conceptually designing as if it's in the hopes that there's going to be a budget allocation from some other source that you know makes it a fruition, but it's not. It's presently not in the overall budget for the school.
Right.
Thanks, Tom, for that question. Can I ask if people can use the raise hand feature if you do have it available? I see that Ms. Gentry has her hand raised, and then we can move to others.
Thank you. Can we go back to the slide showing the field areas, comparing the two field areas? Thank you. I just in comparing the two, it appears to my eye, and I just want to confirm this. Is it in option B, it's a full-size basketball court, and in option A, it's a half-size basketball court?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I can just maybe color just a little more on that, because I don't want this particular issue to weigh in on one option versus the other.
That would be great. Yeah.
The idea is really to have a full-size basketball court in both. You know, I think that as you know, we're moving very fast. There's a lot of feedback coming from many different directions, and so we try best to absorb that and represent it. But I think this merits a little bit of explanation. So the idea is to have a full basketball court on both concepts. So we are showing a half size on the option A, but we can expand that to be a full size. One thing that we've heard that it's more of a kind of a direction now that we've been developing is the idea of decoupling futsal as a sport from the tennis courts. The tennis courts as a use can be best paired with something like pickleball, which is another sport that's gaining a lot of popularity in the city. So those two are like sports and like uses, and so that it was perhaps a better solution to integrate futsal with the basketball court in that they're actually dimensionally, they're very similar in size. So I think, in fact, we only have to expand the basketball court a little bit in its width to be able to accept the futsal dimension. And we even found a product that combines the goal, the scoring goal of the futsal with the basketball hoop. So, you know, people have thought about this already, and there's a product out there that makes this happen. So that's the idea behind those two. But again, I don't want that half versus full court differential in the graphics to weigh in on that, because it would be a full size on either case.
That's great, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate, you know, the time involved, and maybe for some of these it might just be because you can't always control exactly when people have time to look at the drawings or stuff like that. If it's not to save you from maybe having to do, you know, 10 more drawings, it might just be a question of adding a little asterisk to the bottom of a slide or something. Because I think for some of these, it might be helpful for people to understand this is a flexible, this part is a flexible part versus, you know,
Right.
As opposed to some of the parts that aren't.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. There's a couple of other hands raised. Is it Kanik Aguirre?
Yeah, so you mentioned that pickleball is gaining whatever. Are there any hard metrics behind that, or is this all anecdotal?
this is what's being communicated to us by the Parks and Rec group. I couldn't really give you any hard data on
Hey,
that.
is Mr. Browand on?
Yeah, I'm on here. Jack Brown, Acting Deputy Director with the Department of Recreation, Parks and Cultural Activities. Yeah, much of the information, both on futsal and pickleball, quite frankly, is anecdotal. But that we know that each one of those have a high interest. But what we were looking at primarily was that the synergy between the type of activities, racket sport versus racket sport, size versus size, and that futsal can be accommodated on this site adequately on a full-size basketball court. And that way you ensure that you have two similar sports such as tennis and pickleball, that utilize the same surface area, utilize a lot of the amenities on the same court, and you can continue to have sort of that double use with little effort and other maintenance considerations.
Gotcha. And just, do you guys mind refreshing my memory? So the tennis court, was it going to be dual use before, or was it just single use? And then the basketball court was going to be basketball and futsal?
Well, right now, all of the amenities on this location are pretty much single use. But what we've been trying to do throughout our system as we renovate our single use hard court surfaces, look for those opportunities where we can put multiple use. So we currently have 2 pickleball courts overlaid with the tennis court in parts of the city. We've got a couple futsal courts, both on either other hard courts and or tennis courts in the city. And so, but we're trying to look for other opportunities where we can have these sort of co-relationships as we move forward on our maintenance plans.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. That's the way to go. If we could get dual usage out of it, that's all the better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to have like-minded recreational activities and users in the same space.
Thank you, Jack, for
Sure.
that. There's another question, another hand raise. I
Emma was-
lost track. Do you
Omar-
know? No, go ahead. Do you have an order of how the
Yeah,
hands raised?
sure. Is it Miss Kadir, Omama Kadir?
Yes, hi. First of all, I want to apologize if you already answered this question, but I was wondering if it won't be more beneficial to have all the courts on one side, like option B. So we, in this case, if we can fit them all with like option B, then in option A, I mean, on that area in the front where Braddock Road is, it can be more for like more sitting area or more landscape. And I think that will help if we want to use it for any other activities. And just, we have to like put all the sports side on one end. So the tennis court and the basketball, football be together. I think it fits nicely if it's in B. And the other question is having to cross the parking to go to the fields. Would that be an option, or we are still looking at it, or we prefer having the field like option B rather than having the parking splitting between the building and the field, the athletic field? So that won't be like more, the circulation would be more smoother, I think, that way. Thank you.
Okay. So on there were I heard two different comments / questions. The first one was, wouldn't it be better to have all the courts aggregated in the same area? And so like it's shown on option B, perhaps, so that the front of the site, the south side, option A, all of that area facing Braddock could be for other kinds of maybe more passive recreation uses, right? And so that's what I think I heard, and that's certainly doable. I think it's basically taking option A and taking that basketball court, futsal, and placing it on the west side adjacent to tennis, right? And so that would do it. The second question I didn't quite understand, but it had to do with crossing.
Yeah, having the option A, the bus and car, the parking is kind of between the building and
Right.
the field. So just going with the, like, sometime end of the day, there is activities going on, crossing the student going back and forth in that area,
Yeah.
the parking. It's gonna be safer to have a green and walkways
Mhm.
rather than having to break it with like more vehicle
Mhm.
access.
Right, right. Yeah. So I understand. Yeah. So right, and so in a way, I think what perhaps you're leaning to, it's really a situation more like an option B, right? Where
Yeah,
we need that space, right, for the buses, but perhaps it's not in between the building, in the fields, but it's really more off to the side. So,
I
but
mean,
then
where
that
we
is,
have that says parking 20 spaces and just that floor plan just chopped a little bit, maybe that will, maybe you can integrate that part of the bus and car shared. So that all area will be more, if it's redesigned and having it, yeah, all smoothly go.
Right,
So we
right.
can keep that access between the building and the field. So you just keep like sidewalk, greenery, and more landscape seating area for the students, so they can, they can go out of the school, enjoy that area
Mhm.
between the fields, watching other students playing. I mean, it'd be more like
Mhm.
landscape friendly area between
Yeah.
the building and the field.
Yeah.
If we can go, Oscar put some questions in the chat, so we'll go to Taylor and then we'll come back to those questions, and Oscar, if you want to ask them. So Taylor, go ahead.
Okay, so my question, or looking in both school models, just overall, I see that there is a lot of flooring, and my question is, what happens if like a student has like a class on like the first level and they need to get to like the second or fourth level? Would there be more time in scheduling or better like access within the floors for students to get to?
Uh-huh. So your question, if I heard it correctly, has to do with just navigating the school and the schedule, right, between classes, and will you have enough time to get to where you need to be?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Mhm.
Right. So interestingly, we are working with a scheduling consultant that's trying to answer those very, very questions you're raising. But part of this whole organization of the school to be almost like a school within the school is to minimize travel, right? So the idea is that these neighborhoods of classes are meant to behave almost as if they were a school within a school. So most anything that you need would be housed within each of these neighborhoods. Even dining, right? So dining is not something that you go down to the first floor at the end of the wing anymore, but dining is something that happens on each floor in each neighborhood. So that's what you see there in the center of the plan as a kind of salmon color. We call it the Creative Commons. We like that name because it's a place that can be used for other things other than dining, right? When it's not being used for dining, it can become something else. So that's distributed, and that's a very different way to model a school, one that allows for that kind of small scale school kind of feeling or behavior to happen. You would only have to travel outside of that to go to like really big special things, like go to the gym, which happens to be on the third floor, which is more or less the middle of the building vertically, or travel to go to the media center, the library, which also happens to be on the third floor. So a lot of those shared things that you would have to go to are placed strategically in the center of the building vertically. So we're trying to address the very point that you just brought up, to minimize walking distances to those areas. Plus, there's also a kind of behavior and psychology of, high schoolers being able to handle that, right? If we were talking about an elementary school, we probably would not be having this conversation, right? I mean, it's a very different environment for little kids that need to take a long time to walk places and the like. But a high school environment, is a very different place.
One thing that
Uh,
Omar, you may want to point out is the kind of the length of the hallway compared to what we have
Right.
at TC Williams King Street. These are much shorter span of spaces.
Yeah, we did a graphical analysis comparing the wings, these wings, to the King Street wings, and they're a good 20, 30 feet shorter than what's existing over there. So we think that this is perhaps a little more efficient that way.
I think too, and it's hard, when you're a student at the King Street campus, and I have been there when the bell rings, and a bunch of people try to run down the stairs or up the stairs, and it's very crowded. And some of what's slowing you down is just the amount of people trying to move throughout the building. And the whole reason we're kind of we're moving to build a whole new high school is because we know we're overcrowded. And so hopefully some of that kind of works itself out, that you won't be stuck behind a bunch of people trying to get up and down the stairs too. But Oscar, maybe we want to go to you. I know you had a couple questions, so go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe go to that one slide with the AB concept and the previous, what the previous speaker asked about the flow of, the kids having to go through the parking lots and all that. And that was just, and even minimizing the conflicts with cars and the buses. I think maybe this option B may present a better opportunity for that. And then to improve the sidewalk landscape so that you have a wider sidewalk. I mean, the only thing I wanted to underscore, the city has this Vision Zero plan and complete streets plans that, whatever you're designing here should support that. So there should not be any conflict in terms of providing pedestrian and bicycle access and transit access to the site. So that should be, like top of mind.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to have the different color arrows showing how the kids would get through, from the school building over to the athletic fields, just to see, where there are going to be potential conflict between the options, for example. But I think minimizing those conflicts would be important.
Yeah, and that's been made evident, I think, this meeting and this feedback, that is a diagram that is necessary. Also, I just want to maybe not forget, you also raised a question in the chat about stormwater management.
Yes.
I don't know that we have our civil engineer here, but this it's a very highly regulated thing. And so, it's not just us making it look nice. We have to comply with certain requirements for both quality and quantity, right, of stormwater management. So part of that includes daylighting some of these features. And so you see them here illustrated in light green over other green spaces. And I really couldn't comment on the sizes of what's being shown, but do know that we are, we're aware that this is a requirement that we need to develop in the plan. It's our hope that we can daylight some of these systems so that they not only become functional, do what they're supposed to do, but also part of the attractive nature of the place integrated into it. So, but thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, we are, naturally that's a more detailed discussion that would come out in the next level of design.
But again, whatever you do there, you would be supporting other city policies.
Yeah.
In terms of stormwater management and the like. So that would be a good thing.
Yeah. Great.
Omar, would you want to be pointing out that we're working on the option B and kind of integrating the parking spaces that are shown separately currently into the bus, and then moving? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Azuka. Yeah. So we make these drawings. We're working really fast, and a lot of the feedback sort of comes out of sequence. And so as a result, we have drawings that there's somebody in the office today that's already changing them and taking on comments and changes and making them better as a result. One of those changes is where the buses are shown in option B. Option B. It was noted to us that perhaps if you're a person that has mobility concerns and just need a little bit extra time to get to the front door, that's actually a kind of a far away place to place the buses. And so what we're doing now is exploring how we can bring those buses closer to the school. In other words, slide them horizontally on the page closer to the right-hand side of the diagram so that we make access to those buses as convenient as possible. And that, as a result of that, where those 20 parking spaces are being shown, we may have to find another place for them. And so we may have to relocate those perhaps to the western end of this bus area and add them to the already 29 spaces there in order to bring the buses closer to that side. So that's a tweak that we're doing that I think will improve the layout some and make it better for pedestrians and people that have mobility concerns. And I should also point out that all these suggestions and the feedback is natural, is part of the process. And so our hope is that as we get more feedback and more insights from you all, that we can make these plans better. So this is certainly not the last time that we're going to be talking about the site, and so the feedback is much appreciated in the discussion as well. Linda Williams, I see a hand raise.
Hi. I just wanted to talk about the pool for a brief minute. I know that there's been some discussion saying maybe it's not necessary or not green. The feedback that I am getting from parents, as I'm a PTAC member, all the feedback I've been getting from parents is please put in an Olympic-sized pool. It's got to be 50 meters. The swim team needs a place to practice. We could have PE in there. We could teach every child in Alexandria how to swim. So that's every bit of feedback I've gotten about the plan so far has been please find a way to make the pool happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Erica, you were.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump on that. Thank you for that comment. And it certainly is not, I want to be clear, it is not that we don't think it is a need or, something that's not necessary. It's absolutely something we would love to pursue as part of this project. It's just not within the existing budget. And so we are looking at alternate options to see how we can fund it, including looking to some private partners. But we won't have, we'll have to come back on some of that information. And that's really money is the only reason we wouldn't include it. It's not because we don't know it's a need. So just wanted to clarify that. It is 7:47. And I know we do want to ask, I think we were going to ask the actual polls too, just in case some people didn't get a chance to speak tonight. So do we want to continue moving through the presentation? Yeah, okay. So Omar, if you want to.
Yep. So here's the poll question as promised. Just two questions. The first one, considering everything you've heard today and the discussion that we just had and knowing that there's things that we can still move around, but generally speaking, between the two options, which one do you like best and that meets the needs as you understand them today? Option A, the bus loop between the fields and the school building, or option B, the bus loop along Braddock Road and all of the things that option can afford, knowing that, we still have some design work to do and some questions to answer, but those generally are the two options. Or perhaps you might be in the camp that maybe both options for you have equal merit. So we would like to hear that as well. So if you can answer those. And then the second part is a multiple choice. And we're asking really of these choices that we have here, which ones weighed in on your decision? One, either option A or B or both. Is it the safe vehicular pedestrian access, the relationship of the fields to the school building, the parking options for the fields, the layout of the fields and the courts, and there was a little bit of discussion about that, but please all things being equal, there's full-size basketball on both. So don't let that be something that that weighs one way or the other. And the flexibility for future expansion.
Hey, Oscar, what if we don't like either option? Are you asking us, is there's a preference between the in-between and the Braddock Road then?
Yeah, so, and my name is Omar, by the way.
Omar, sorry.
It's okay.
I was looking at something else.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, there's an Oscar in the call, yes.
That's right.
You know, I think that's fair to say, and I think we would like to hear that as well, that, hey, perhaps there's a combination of the two, right? And you know, but I think that if you are going to comment in that fashion, we would like to hear why, right? So if you can just add a little substance to that in your comment, that would be great. So the polls on the screen, I'm going to wait for folks to. Okay, so it looks like at the top, the option B, it's rather overwhelming, the support, and nobody really said option A and B, notwithstanding Scanic's comment just now. And then for the second part, we have an even split on 3 concerns: safe vehicular and pedestrian access, the fields to the school building relationship, and the layout of the fields and the courts. Excellent. Okay. So shall we move on to the last piece? Because we have a couple more questions for you. This one, I think the discussion is really about the layout of the building, given what we've heard today about how the building is organized. On the one hand, the hand concept, organized as a pair of wings, if you will, a pair of fingers on a hand that have almost like a sibling relationship, right? You could imagine these two things, these two buildings almost being like related to one another, being similar to one another, and then having a courtyard in between as a connecting piece and providing for that indoor-outdoor connectivity. And then on the bottom of the page, the pinwheel concept, which takes those same wings, but then distributes them a little bit differently on the site. It does result in a more compact footprint, as we have seen, but a more compact footprint that requires a 5th floor. Now, you know, and a detail that I should also point out with both of these really is that because the topography is low on the right-hand side, but then high on the left-hand side, the building's appearance from the west is that of 3 stories, really. From the east, on the pinwheel concept, we do have a 5-story building, but its appearance from the west would be that of 4 stories by virtue of how the topography is climbing up underneath the building. On the hand concept, it's a 4-story from the east side, but really 3 from the west side. Does that make sense? By virtue of the topography climbing up, right? And the building being kind of tucked against the hillside. So here's the poll. First question, which one do you like best, the hand concept or the pinwheel concept? And that's in either one of those. And then on number 2, perhaps help us understand some of the reasons why you chose that way. Is it because of the massing, the relationship of the massing to the neighborhood? You know, this 4-story versus 5-story. You know, think about you know, the context and the residential context, the retail context to the east, and of course Braddock Road. The relationship to King Street campus, and this is a little bit of maybe perhaps projecting a little bit because the building sits as we saw, 2/3 of a mile to the west. But is there some aspect of this that resonates with you that reminds you or connects back to King Street as an idea, thinking about the connected campus idea? Is it the organization of the building, the hand versus the pinwheel, and how you imagine those spaces to look and work? The courtyard / outdoor space options, and one could say maybe connections, the connection between the inside and the outside, and how well that weighed in on your choice. And then lastly, the flexibility for future expansion, which I realized I didn't really mention all that much, but I should point out that both options have opportunities for expanding into the future. So the cursor there is illustrating how that would happen on the hand concept, and then the pinwheel has this sort of pavilion-like opportunity. And I think that those areas that are represented there are equal to about 40,000 square feet of space on 4 floors, which would match the existing building. And that is kind of let's call it future proofing of the site. That amounts to about 400 additional students on the site. So just making sure that there's enough room on the site to potentially add into the future in case that 15, 20 years down the road, the school district is in a position to expand opportunities for students. So with that, I'm going to end that poll. And the hand concept, pulling out ahead convincingly, 57 to 43% there. And organization of the building, the courtyard spaces playing a big role in how you chose that way. So this, I hope that you found this helpful. I know that we raised some questions and there was some discussion, and please know that this is why we do this, right? We want to hear the feedback, and it'll weigh in on the decisions we have to make in the process ahead. So what we just went through was kind of a summarized version of what we did in the office to evaluate the two concepts. And so we took a finer comb through the internal planning of the building and evaluated them using this criteria. And I won't read it all, but you might be able to look at this later when you have some time. Things like interdisciplinary communities and flexibility and adaptability. And some of these things, I think educators maybe perhaps resonate with a little bit better because they have to do with the internal organization of the school. But then at the bottom, some other criteria that is more site related. But the upshot is that you can see that both concepts really perform really well, at least according to our criteria. And so it's really a matter of how well does it fit in the site, and what other things can we do with the site with either one of these concepts. So with that, I'm going to pass it over back to Azuka, who's going to walk us through some important information here. Azuka.
Thank you, Omar. We've presented this slide before. We have done a preliminary budget analysis. Out of the total allocation for the high school project, $150 million is budget toward the construction, as we are prioritizing the educational programs, the teaching and learning spaces, common areas and shared spaces such as gymnasium, total up to approximately $150 million. As we have discussed earlier, the aquatic pool, underground parking, and co-located partner spaces are still under consideration as optional programs, and they're still under review, and we're looking at various financing options. Next slide, please. Engagement calendar. We do have our school board meeting coming up on April 8th, which will be the vote on the concept. And then as a follow-up to that meeting, we'll have another superintendent advisory team meeting. And we would like you to let us know what is the best time. Medea is going to pull up a poll on possible dates and times. And if you could just choose which times and dates work the best for you, you can choose multiple options. And the option that works the best for most members will set up that time for our next meeting. Okay, we have the results. Medea, would you like to pull that up? So it seems like April 12th, 5:30 to 6:30, 6 to 7 p.m. would work for most, as well as the April 13th, 6 to 7 p.m. have about similar 43%. So we'll set up the meeting one of those times and you will get an invite from us. Thank you, Medea. Next slide, please. We've gone through these milestones prior. We're anticipating about one meeting per month moving forward. We'll have with the process going through the early spring of 2022. Next slide, please. Here's our contact information and our website information. And with that, that is the end of our presentation. And I think it's a little past 8 o'clock. So thank you again for everyone, your feedback, your recommendations, your comments. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you,
guys, for
everybody.
your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.